old friend Mike Arnold's here. Mike, what's going on, man? I'm taking the background there.
I like the background too. I keep telling my wife Frances, it's not a big enough room now, and she said, "Yeah, you better hope they lose weight." So,
You'll be
but
building
I do. I enjoy this office.
you'll be putting an addition onto your house before long.
This is an addition.
Oh no. Whoops. We should probably call Francis in and talk to her.
I don't think we should raise this subject with her right now. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
got it. What's the bird over your shoulder with the red
So
on the?
that's the crested guan, right over my left ear, I guess. My
Yeah,
left ear to me is the great curacao. You can sort of see the yellow
yeah.
sticking out into the black wildebeest. But those are both from Yucatan.
Very cool. Very cool. I think I saw the picture of you with the birds.
Probably. I sent them to everybody I could think of.
That's very cool. Is that their version of the turkey?
They actually have ocellated turkeys down there, and that's really what. Well, I went down for brocket deer and those two birds actually, and I ended up with both brocket deer species and those two birds. And when I came back, I had so many friends who turkey hunt said, "Did you get an ocellated turkey?" I mean, I was in the prime area. This outfitter outfits for them all the time, and everybody gets a turkey.
Mm.
And I said, no, I wanted to go from some of the other kinds of birds. And they thought I was an idiot. But anyway, but yeah, they have turkeys down there.
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. So we hadn't had you on in a while. So let's kind of take a step back a little bit for people who may not have heard you on our previous podcast. So you've been hunting since the age of what, 5 years old?
Yeah, I probably was out with daddy and my brother before then, but I killed my first whitetail when I was 5. So I sort of marked that as my big game hunting. Now, this was, of course, when I was 5. That was 1962. I'm that old. So this was Texas Hill Country, and I call her the most unlucky doe in the Texas Hill Country because I missed 4 others.
Mm.
I had to shoot off a daddy's shoulder with my little 243, and my arms were too short, so I had to crawl the stock, and this poor little doe ran into my bullet. But of course, then the deer weren't quite as big
Right.
in the Texas Hill Country. So she was probably about the size of an over large jackrabbit. But that's when we rabbit hunted. We quail hunted behind the house. We lived in the country. We dove hunted. You talked about your dove shoot, and I didn't. I never, like I said, I've never had a dove shoot like y'all had recently with your cast and blast. Or blast and cast. I can't ever keep that straight. So
We blasted before we cast it, and then we blasted.
I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, so we hunted constantly. We didn't have any squirrels around, so that was one of the small game that we didn't have. We did down at the deer lease, so we hunted them down there. But yeah, I was constantly shooting. We had our own pistol range, our own shotgun range, our own long, rifle 100-yard range. So if that's probably why I wear hearing aids now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen, my first deer too, growing up in Louisiana, there were no big deer in Louisiana if you saw any at all. And my first one I remember I killed with buckshot and put the whole thing before it was even dressed into a cooler. I mean, it was about the size you're describing. So, but I couldn't have been more proud,
Oh,
been more excited.
oh, it was wonderful introduction for me. That doe, just to bring out the story, all the people in the deer camp where we were near San Saba, Texas, knew that this little 5-year-old had not gotten his deer. And everybody else, I don't know if everybody else had gotten their deer or not. On the last day we were there, everybody put their guns up.
Yeah.
And then they did a drive. And they drove them, just daddy and me. And they drove this doe into our laps. So to me, that speaks volumes to who hunters are. And that's what I've experienced my whole life with hunters. That's the kind of graciousness and looking out for the youngest member and the person that doesn't have their animal yet. So
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Yeah, I find, and you and I've talked about this before. I find as I get older, I'm more excited to see what the kids or somebody who hasn't hunted before bring
Hmm.
into camp,
Yep.
or a new guy that's on our deer lease or whatever comes in. And he's like, "Man, you couldn't believe what I saw today." No, 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 no. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's I, I'm just as happy just to sit in the blind all day and just watch animals, whether it's birds or whatever.
Yep. That's me too.
Just to unplug and get away from everything."
Yeah, I love I love not sitting in my head's office at the University of Georgia and
Right.
with my phone off because the dean cannot get me that way.
Hunting Matters is sponsored by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Under the visionary leadership of founder Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's is leading North America's largest conservation movement. Together with their partners in conservation, they're positively shaping the future of the outdoors through donations, grant making, and advocacy. The 501c3 Outdoor Fund raises funds to support conservation efforts by activating more than 200 million passionate sportsmen and women, rounding up their purchases in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's stores and online. Visit BassPro.com or Cabela's.com today.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. We're both SEC fans. What's Georgia's season going to look like this year? I've been keeping up with them a little bit.
well, I don't know. I mean, we managed to beat Tennessee, and a very good Tennessee team, mind you. And um, I don't know. We're playing Alabama this week,
Yeah.
so I don't know if we play LSU this year until we see y'all in the playoffs. But I
I
don't
don't
know.
think we do. Yeah, I don't think we do. And, I wouldn't, I mean, Alabama's Alabama. You never know, but I don't think
Yep.
it's as much of a threat as it has been the past few years since, you know, Saban left and when it became an Aflac spokesman.
I know one of my buddies from LSU. I was at LSU for a year and a half, if you
Mhm.
remember that. I was a scientist there working in their biochem department before I came across to Georgia with a faculty position. One of my buddies, after Nick Saban left LSU, they told me their nickname for him now is Satan,
Yeah.
Nick Satan, because
You know,
he ran out.
I think since he's retired, though, I think they've started to forgive him. They actually inducted him into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame recently, and
Hmm.
it was just that he went to Alabama. I think that was the thing. We always liked it, but it's he's one of those coaches like you hate him if he's not coaching your team, but you love him if he is.
Oh, I actually have a great deal of respect for him, but
Yeah,
I'm glad he's not coaching Alabama right now, to be
right,
perfectly honest. He had
right.
our number. I mean, he
Oh,
had Georgia's number.
yeah. Well, we got lucky every once in a while and beat them, but it was it was a nightmare. Um, so you talked about growing up hunting deer and small game and things like
Mhm.
that. How did you make that big leap? What was that point in your life when you made that leap from hunting those animals to going to Africa?
Well, I've told the story before, but it was in 17. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they gave me a year to live.
Mhm.
And I'm still here ruining their data. But so they put me on experimental drugs and did a bunch of surgeries and stuff like that. And I was sick as a dog, just like I feel for folks who have to deal with cancer. Let me add that really quickly. And so in late in that year, my brother, who's my older brother and one of my big heroes, had been to Africa, and I had never been to Africa. And Randy called me one day, and he could tell I was sick as a dog.
Mm.
And he said, "Let's go hunting." And I said, "I'd love to." I said, "I got to get a little bit stronger, but let's go hunting." And I said, "Let's go out to the west because I love hunting elk and everything else out there." And then we got to chatting for a little bit, and I was starting to fade. And I said, "I think I need to get off the phone." And I said, "But one thing I've never done is I'd love to go to Africa sometime." And he said, "Let's go." So he set up this trip for early 18, and that's how I got there. And now I've been a lot every year since then. It's like everybody else, you drink the water of the Niles,
Yeah.
and it's hard not to go back for most of us. But that's how I got there,
Yeah.
and it was a magical trip. And as all first safaris probably are, at least for me, it sure was. So.
Capital Farm Credit understands that there's something about the outdoors that pulls you in. Could be the fresh air, the colors, the smells, the animals, the freedom. It's all just a part of who you are. And with our recreational land loans, you can purchase land for whatever outdoor pursuit you please. That way, the outdoors won't just be in your soul, it'll also be in your name. To learn more, visit capitalfarmcredit.com. Together, we're better.
What's the first animal you took on your first trip? Okay, here's a
All
story.
right. I wrote an article about it called The Strangest Client, because that's what a outfitter there called me. My first African animal was a Vol Reebok. It's that thing sitting above my head. And the volley I'd read about in Craig Boddington's works. And I like weird stuff. That's why those two birds are sitting over my shoulder, and and I hunt normal stuff too, but what others would call normal. But my first African animal was up in the mountains, and obviously free range. They don't farm them at all or ranch them at all. And we got into great property, got a very nice animal. But the strangest client thing was when we got back to the main property of Blowkrantz, is the safari outfitters we were with. I was talking to one of the Rudman's sons, and we were both having our sundowners, and he was standing there, and he said, "So, I heard you got your volley." And I said, yeah, I was really happy with that. He said, "What else have you taken? How many safaris have you been on?" And I said, "This is my first one." He did the most beautiful spit take and dumped a bunch of bourbon right on top of my foot. But he said, "You are the strangest client I've ever met in my life." I said, "That's an article title right there."
Was it? Do you think you were strange because the animal that you chose to take first, or?
No, they put it on their list, but they told me we really don't like to have them on our list, honestly, because they're so difficult to get. I shot that darn thing. It's the size of a collie, and I shot it at 300 and some odd yards.
Oh, wow.
And that was close for them, but I will have to admit, and I write about it in this new book that I just put out, but he was much closer the first time I shot at him. And he was much closer the second time I shot at him.
Yeah, it happens.
Someone said, "So you're giving him a good chance?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what it was." But they're just hard to hunt. They're in the mountains. You have to go up and down. Lots and lots and lots of rocky slopes to get to them.
Yeah. So your wife, Frances, she's a photographer and videographer. She does all the creative stuff, aside from which your book, your writing and things like that. But does she go pretty much travel with you all the time?
She does. She's going to Scotland with me. We're on the 15th of October. We'll be over there till the 27th. She'll be there slogging up. I haven't mentioned to her as much as I probably should that we're going to be going up and down hills in the Highlands. But she's actually an adventurous. But yeah, she's going back to Katahdin 11 with me next June. Well, actually Katahdin 11 and then the Eastern Cape next June. So yeah, she went to Oklahoma with me not that long ago, and we go all over, but she's a non-hunter.
Yeah.
So not an anti-hunter, obviously, right, but a non-hunter.
Hunting Matters is presented by Copandero Indoor Archery Pistol and Rifle Range, your premier indoor archery pistol and rifle shooting destination. Located in Oak Ridge North, right next to the Woodlands, Copandero offers two 25-yard pistol ranges, a 100-yard rifle range, and a 25-yard archery range. Whether you're honing your skills or just starting, Copandero has everything you need, including rentals, classes, a retail store, an in-house cafe, and a VIP lounge. Join Copandero today for an unmatched shooting experience. To learn more, go to copandero.com.
So how does that work? She's just enjoying the experience with you when she travels, or she's...
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I will say, and I've got a great photo of her standing in front of a car at a range where we were doing an old broken down car at a range where I was doing a bunch of rifle and PDW reviews. getting data for those. And Frances loves shooting, and she particularly loves handguns, and she's a much better handgunner than I am. But there was this PT Cruiser, and she asked the range guy there, it was used in training sessions for police and army, police, law enforcement. And she said, "Can I shoot that?" She hates PT Cruisers. She thinks they're the most disgusting automobile in the world.
I agree with her.
Well, I have no dog in this fight, so except that I'm married to her. And guy said, "Sure, it's one of our training vehicles." And she grabbed the PDW, filled the clip, and just shot the crap out of that car. And I've got this photo of her with this gun posed next to this car with her beautiful little pattern in the side panel of the front door of this thing.
That's hilarious.
And so she really likes shooting. She really does. And but she just, she tells me, "I have no desire to pull the trigger on an animal." I said, "Okay."
Yeah. My wife is not a hunter, but she's a selective hunter, if you will. I mean, she would have no problem pulling the trigger on a pig, but no interest in, in deer and that sort of thing. What are you guys going to be doing in Scotland? I'm excited to hear about that.
I know. Well, we fly into Glasgow and then we head up into the Highlands. We are hunting for red deer, sika, and also roebuck. So we'll see if we can get any or all of those. Red stag is obviously free range, and it's also native there. So that's one of the reasons, being a conservation biologist and a hunter too. But I love hunting things in their native ranges if I can.
Is that your first trip over there?
It's first hunting trip to Scotland. I've been to Scotland to speak 5 times, maybe, something like that. St. Andrews. Do you golf?
No.
No, I don't either. But they took me onto the old course and we wandered around there, and sent photos of me on top of some stone bridge, that's some important stone bridge. And I sent it to all my golfing buddies and they were frustrated. I said, "Well, some of us have contacts."
Exactly.
I didn't hit a golf ball while I was there, but this is our first hunting trip there. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you looking for an investment that goes beyond the ordinary? Wildlife Partners is the nation's leader in breeding and consulting for the exotic wildlife industry. When you invest in wildlife, you're not just acquiring a 100% tax-deductible asset, you're playing a vital role in the conservation of endangered species. Do you own land? You can turn your ranch into a profitable wildlife-driven business. And even if you don't own land, that's no problem. Wildlife Partners offers unique opportunities for non-landowners to invest in conservation while enjoying significant tax benefits and potential cash flow.
And how long is that trip going to be for these? For this
15th to the 27th is when we're there. We're going to do some touring around too. Okay, I got it. Okay, I encourage people to go to Europe, and because especially if they have non-hunters who love history, you'll get to see some really cool places, and I love history too. So you'll get to see some really cool places. Someone asked me, actually Diana Rupp from Sports Afield and I were talking the other day about some articles from Katata 11 when we go next June. But anyway, she said she had just gotten back from Scotland. And I said, "Yeah, we're going over." And she said, "Oh, you'll love it." And I said, "Diana, I've got a confession to make." I said, "I'm really looking forward to the hunting." But I said, "You know what I'm looking forward to most of all?" And she said, "What?" And I said, "They've got us tickets on that Harry Potter train." Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to get morning tea and all sorts of stuff. I lived in Australia for 6 years, so I'm used to morning tea and stuff like that.
I love Europe. I mean, it's you wander around, you look like you think the history in our country is old, and you see these things, it's like, oh my gosh, blows your mind. Blows your mind.
Exactly. But yeah, I've never gone to the Highlands. And to be able to go there and hunt is just it's going to be magical. I can already tell.
Yeah. Forgive me for not knowing this. obviously, you're a very experienced and well-educated educator of young people. Are you teaching? Do you do direct
Hmm.
teaching right now?
Yes. Yeah, I teach right now. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. Does the hunting talk and things spill over into your classrooms? Are they curious? Do they know you hunt? Kind of what's, you hear all the horror stories about, oh, our universities and our educational system is all going out of control and no, 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 no. And
Hmm.
of course, you're at
Yeah.
Georgia, so you're at a Southern university. But just curious to know. I mean, do you encounter students at that age that are hunting or that are pro hunting or anti hunting? How does that envelop your day to day life as an educator?
Yeah, so, well, the university loves that I'm putting out books, and they know that it's conservation work, conservation through consumptive sports, and in my case, that's hunting. So they love seeing their, professors do that sort of thing. And so let me couch this in this way. I am probably in one of the most liberal departments on my campus, other than something like social work or philosophy or something like that. And they actually asked me to be head, and I said, "You do know I'm a West Texas redneck?" And they said, "Yeah, we do understand that." They trusted me to lead them, be fair, and so I appreciated that. But my colleagues, I don't know of a hunter now. There was one colleague; he's since gone somewhere else, who hunted, and some grad students I've known that I've hunted with, and that sort of thing. If the demographics are right, though, across like they are across this country, my argument would be I'd have some anti-hunters in my class, my undergraduate class I'm teaching right now. I'd have some hunters in my class, and then the most of them would be non-hunters, and they would be. And what I find is when I talk to them about it, and I do talk to them about it in class, about how conservation models work, and that hunting undergirds all the conservation really that's going on in North America and Europe and Africa, wherever, that, and the consumptive sports, not just hunting, fishing does as well too here, but they're intrigued more than put off. um, and if they're hunters, they're like, oh, a lot of times hunters don't know that, though, Joe. I
Right.
mean, a lot of us don't know that our purchases are what, you know fund all of the wildlife stuff that goes on in our states, and all the conservation work that goes on in our states. So anyway, it's that's what I have found is when I talk to the kids about that, and I do call them kids because they're young enough now to be my grandkids.
Right.
When I talk to them, that's what I find is that most of them, the vast majority, are non-hunters, and they just don't know about it, which is why I think we need to, as a community, I need to be doing a better job of enfolding more of those, intriguing them
Hmm.
and getting them to try it.
Yeah. Is that? I mean, what are your top discussion points when you are talking to somebody about how hunting and conservation coexist? Is it financial, like you just said? Is it species management, herd management? I'm curious to know from your perspective, what are your kind of your top three hit points in that kind of conversation to say that hunting and conservation coexist, and here's why.
So my elevator talk to them quickly is that conservation through this thing called Pittman Robertson, you know, it, the hunting dollars and shooting dollars gather in about $1 billion a year, and that all goes to the states, and that's what the states run their conservation programs on. And then I talk to them if they want to still hear. I talked to them about what it was like up until the 1930s, and that white-tailed deer were extinct in Georgia, for example, and all of them have seen whitetails around here, and turkeys were extinct, and all of this sort of stuff. And we go into a little bit more detail. But I just started off with the fact that the money that's brought in from the shooting and sports and the hunting and fishing, once again, is what funds our conservation programs across the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very, very strong position and a valid point to discuss as well. Um, That's a lot of the conversations I have are kind of based on that focal point as well.
Hunting Matters is presented by DEA Ranch. Are you looking for the ultimate South Texas hunting experience? Then look no further than DEA Ranch. DEA Ranch offers some of the best whitetail and exotic game hunts in South Texas year-round. Whether you're looking to fill your freezer or put that next hunting memory on the wall, their professional guides are focused on ensuring each client has a memorable and exciting hunting experience. DEA Ranch offers guided hunts, professional staff, chef-prepared meals, trophy preparation, and more. To learn more, go to dearanch.com. That's dearanch.com.
You've done a lot of traveling. You've observed a lot of things. You've been involved with a lot of projects and that sort of thing. When you talk about things like some of the things you've written on, when you talk about ecosystems and the revitalization of ecosystems and those sorts of things, you and I have talked about it, but share with our audience a little bit about probably one of your best examples. First of all, what is a revitalized ecosystem, and what is a great example that you've been part of or have witnessed over the past several years?
Well, and so in an area that we would hunt, we would have multiple ecosystems, and it's like a web, if you will. So you can imagine yourself just for a moment, if you walk from the ocean all the way up into what we refer to as stabilized dunes, and then past it into an area that starts having trees, you've walked across a whole series of ecosystems. Mm. And the way hunting dollars, for the most part, to begin with anyway, the way that protects those is it simply protects that land, makes it valuable. So if you have species there that are valuable in the sense that they bring you and me over to, let's say, Africa. And my best example that I can come up with in Africa is a place called Katada 11. It's in Mozambique. Katada just means hunting concession, by the way, for y'all. It's a Portuguese word. And so in Katada 11, back in the mid-90s, hunting outfitter Zambezi Delta Safaris came in. Mark Haldane heads this up along with some other, a lot of folks. And they came in and the animals were gone. The game animals were pretty much gone. And the reason they were gone is because of the Civil War, they ate them. Just like we did, it wasn't Civil War, but just like we did when we hit the Eastern Seaboard and we were a developing country and we ate everything with protein on it, protein sources as we moved west towards the Mississippi. So that area was depauperate of those game animals. And so the ecosystems were fragmented. The ecosystems were highly disturbed because of that, because you didn't have your large herbivores for the most part. But you also didn't have carnivores. So you didn't have that entire system there. And what Katada 11 folks did is they invested heavily in anti-poaching and also in distributing the hunted animals' meat to the local Sena villagers. And so with the anti-poaching, you hired the local Sena villagers and you hire the poachers. As Mark Haldane says, if I don't hire them, they're going to be out poaching because they're very good at it. Well, right. They're very good at anti-poaching because he hires those guys and hired those guys and continues to do that. So they provided meat protein from the hunted animals, and they hired people on the basis of with the funding that came in from international hunters like us. They kept building that up, that whole system, where they kept giving to the people opportunities to then be employed, to then have farmland, but controlled farmland. They protected against wood poaching. I have two kinds of poaching that I talk about all the time. There's wood and meat, and wood is devastating. Meat is devastating. Wood is terminally devastating because what that means is they cut out every bit of the vegetation. Yeah. So they protect against that, and those habitats have grown into healthy ecosystems, whole series of healthy ecosystems across this in that case, 500,000 acres. And so what that does is the health of that ecosystem is not just measured on the basis of game animals, which are back in huge numbers now, exponentially grown numbers since the mid-90s, but the songbirds, the insects, the lizards, the snakes. Unfortunately, some are poisonous, but they're they're growing in numbers, and everything. Your scavengers, your vultures, you're protecting everything. And in that case, they've also now introduced their apex predators. They've introduced cheetahs, which were extinct, and lions, which were extinct. And that was huge. The Cabela Family Foundation is the one that really has paid for this, along with the rest of us who go in there and hunt. But those were huge moves to try to get an even healthier set of ecosystems, to get the apex predators back in.
Nobody wants to imagine an emergency on a hunting trip, but when the unexpected happens, you want the team of medical and security experts at Global Rescue to be there for you. Global Rescue Operations Centers are staffed by experienced personnel, and you'll always speak to an expert on the first call. Global Rescue provides unparalleled capabilities to transport members to the hospital of their choice, not just the closest. So trade what-ifs for peace of mind with convenient travel services designed for the unexpected. Learn more at globalrescue.com/hunting matters.
To the local people, the villagers, obviously they benefit from this, from having a place to conduct agriculture, to obtain protein and that sort of thing. Mark a lot better than I do. Was it a struggle to get his vision accepted by the locals, and where is it now?
So initially there was distrust. Are you coming in? You can honestly understand it. I mean, all they had known, Mozambique Civil War was, they are the example of child soldiers, for example. Yeah. And millions died. So all they knew was abuse at the hands of others. And so you had a bunch of guys come in from South Africa, although one of the major investors is Mozambican as well. And so, but they came in and they said, look, this is what we want to do. We want to serve y'all. And we want to see the ecosystems, the habitats, the land around you become healthy again. And so as they employed them, and as they slowly built up the amount of meat that was coming in, because they hunted more and more and more, the people actually saw that they were coming through with their promises, i.e. that they were giving them, they give them 10 pounds. Every family has 10 pounds of red meat per week. Now they also have a fishing program that they've instituted. It's all, free of charge. And so the people have plenty of protein. And they also have places to grow their carbs, their rice and their maize.
It's every time I read the stories out of there, I'm amazed at what they're doing down there, and the whole way it's set up, and it just out of respect for local cultures and communities as well.
In the heart of nature, give your deer the nutrition they deserve with Record Rack Deer Feeds. The premium feeds support antler growth and overall herd health. Whether you're a wildlife enthusiast or a dedicated hunter, Record Rack Deer Feeds provide essential nutrients for a thriving herd. Choose Record Rack Deer Feeds for optimal deer nutrition. Visit recordrack.com to learn more.
Let's talk about your writing, something that we both have a love and a passion for. So you've written over 200 magazine articles plus. I mean, I know it's probably way above that. And then a few years back, you started writing books, and your book, Bringing Back the Lions, really highlighted this talk we're having right now with the Mozambique's ecosystem recovery. Did that experience change your approach? Did that experience of writing the first book affect your approach to your second book, which I want to talk about in a second, or was it kind of the same thing, or did you kind of go, I want to do it differently this time?
Well, so I have to back up just a little bit.
Sure.
I had put out 4 books before Bringing Back the Lions, but they were textbooks. And I knew that I could write good textbooks. Those were for Oxford University Press, and they're a lot of work, but I love doing them. I loved writing the long form. You do too. You have a novel coming out, and I haven't done that. So that maybe someday I'll learn how to do that. But when I started working on bringing back the lions, we went to Cantata 11. I'd gotten money from organizations to write this book. They were all really gung-ho. Mark was really excited. And I got back home from the first trip to Cantata 11. I mean, we spent months there. But from the first trip, and I came back in, and I was sitting at my desk out here, and Frances came in, and she said, "What's wrong?" She could tell I said, "I can't do this. I, I don't even know where to start." I said, "I've never written a book like this. This is a story-driven book." She said, "You've written a lot of magazine articles." I said, "Yeah, but this is a book. You know, it's got to have a thread. It's got blah, blah, blah." She said, "I tell you what, sit down with all the photos and see if and start writing from your photos." And, you know, interestingly, she hit on for me, I'm not saying everybody does this, but for me, that was the key. I write from scene figures, illustrations for my first 4 books. That's how I wrote it. I wrote them around data in that case, but this was writing stories around remembrances from photos. And so that's how I did it on the first book. And when I came to the second book, I already knew that that's what I was needed. Once again, all authors are going to have a different, potentially going to have a different way of doing stuff. And I'd love to hear how how the heck you come up with your stuff, because I don't have a clue. But all authors may have a different way of doing it, but that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And so that's my starting material.
I'm visual too, Mike. I mean, I imagine the world that I write fiction. And so I imagine the world that my character's in. And sometimes if people crawled in this brain and went, how did you think about that dark stuff? And sometimes you go, well, how many times, you got to kill like 20 people in your book, and you got to come up with a different way to kill them every time. It's like, if I really explored the origin of that, it'd probably scare me to death. But I'm like you, I'm visual. I like to, and it was a learning process for me too, writing the first book, of what is actually happening, and not only that of what I'm thinking and seeing, but also how can I describe it so the reader can visualize the picture I'm trying to paint, if you will, and so everybody's process is different. But I don't know about you, but when I sit down to write, I will find myself working for hours, not because I feel like I have to, but because it just kind of takes me places. So I really love it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think the more successful authors that I've read, do draw you in. And I'll say, I got to read your manuscripts at times, and you drew me into the story, and you do get into the pace, and you do see and smell with the best authors. And I think that's what everybody's trying to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you looking for a smarter way to manage your document imaging and print environment? Dex Imaging delivers industry-leading printers, copiers, and fully managed print services designed to cut cost, boost productivity, and simplify your workflow. Whether you're a small business or a Fortune 500 company, Dex provides personalized local service with the power of a national network, so you get fast, reliable support wherever you are. Dex gives back, proudly supporting organizations like Houston Safari Club Foundation by giving through profit sharing. Dex Imaging, smarter technology, exceptional service, proven results. Visit deximaging.com or email Adam Montgomery at adam.montgomery@deximaging.com.
Now, jump ahead. You got another book. You got another book, Bringing Back the Wild.
Yep.
What is Bringing Back the Wild about?
So it follows on in some ways from Bringing Back the Lions, and actually my book agent, or my agent, and my good buddy now, BG Dilworth, up in New York City, he came up with both titles. He did Bringing Back the Lions as soon as I told him about Mary Cabela. and the Cabela Family Foundation and what they were doing in Cantata 11 about bringing back the lions. So with this, I got him to read the manuscript, and so the reason it sounds like a broader topic is because it now what I wanted to do was I went into Cantata 11 and we went into detail, honey production, why is beekeeping so important to the folks there, and how are hunters contributing to that, in terms of hives and all sorts of stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do was to take a series of hunts, a series of safaris, if you will, various places around the world, and investigate those and tell the story, and make it, interesting to me and to others, but then also tell the story of how that helps the local communities again, and also with the conservation of natural habitats. And so that's what Bringing Back the Wild's about. It's goes all the way from the Yucatan Peninsula to Sweden to, all over to Africa, of course, back and forth to Africa, to British Columbia, you name it. And so that's what I was trying to do, to look at in the back of my mind, and I say this in the book off and on, but I'm looking at a bunch of different, what I refer to as submodels, if you will, of conservation through hunting. Mm-hmm. How do they do it in British Columbia? How do they do it in Sweden? How do they do it in Yucatan? What are the common denominators? And at the whole time, of course, looking at it through the eyes of someone who loves adventures and telling the adventure.
Yeah. Because I remember you telling me a story about the first book. I think you had a friend or a family member, somebody who was not a hunter, and you were trying to convince them to read the first book, mm-hmm. and did so. But as a scientist and a writer, how do you approach your book development, from storytelling to data and mm-hmm. all those elements that you incorporate into your writings, to where it is attractive not only to hunters, but people who don't hunt?
Well, and so I was on a podcast last week, and at the end of the podcast, the podcaster mentioned to me, he said, well, Mike obviously has a little bit more tact than I do. And I said, well, you haven't asked my wife and kids. They would never suggest I have tact. And Joe knows this well enough. He's been around me enough. But I think it's not soft pedaling, but being courageous of us as hunters to say we're proud to be hunters, and we love our sport, and we love passionately being in the outdoors, and we think we have the market cornered on appreciating the outdoors, because I really actually think we do. Mm-hmm. But also approaching it to tell them stories that incorporate how people are uplifted and how nature is uplifted, and that killing a few animals leads to the restoration and conservation of the vast majority. And why is that so? How does that work? Because it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to give just to say as an aside, I'm giving a talk at one of our colleges, our universities here at Georgia, in December, and they asked me to do a talk on this topic. And I said, okay, I'm happy to do it. I said, I have a talk, and I put it together. I said, which is why everyone should be pro hunting.
Yeah.
So I can't, it's that sort of thing. Because this class is going to be, like you said, it's going to be filled full of folks who are at least non-hunters.
Right.
How do we approach them? And, I think about Charlie Kirk. I've been thinking about him so much because I was such an admirer and still am of him. Mm-hmm. And I think about his approach where he told the truth.
Right.
And he did it in a respectful manner, but he never backed away from it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. How many thousands of conversations have you had about him over the past 2 weeks?
Yep.
We had a staff lunch yesterday. We were talking about it. They were like, "Well, I don't understand." Somebody said, "Well, he's such an effective speaker," and I said, "Because he was rooted in his faith. He was educated. He was knowledgeable. He knew what he was talking about." But the other thing is he was strong in his beliefs, no matter what it was, and it
Yep.
wasn't, it wasn't obtrusive. It wasn't, this is the way it should be, and I'm right. It was, this is what I believe, and let me try to convince you why.
Yeah.
And I think your approach to writing as well as speaking, you're a phenomenal public speaker. I mean, I've witnessed firsthand when you speak to the crowd. You're just so easygoing, but so effective with the data you present, where it's not like, well, the n equals cc squared. No, no, no. I mean, you don't go
I
there.
can do that if you want me to.
No, I'm sure you can. No, I'll pass on that one. But I mean, it's just that ability to convey that message or whatever the topic is, either in your writing or in public speaking. I mean, you're masterful at that because you know how to read a room. You've obviously done this for so much of your career teaching students and that sort of thing, and you're to be applauded for that. But I think the books, bringing back the lions and bringing back the wild is the way they're written. Anybody who's listening right now who's not a hunter should absolutely pick those books up and read them, because they're not just about hunting. They're about ecosystems, and they're about people, and they're about different models, and they're just all these things that, if you want to really kind of get educated on hunting through science and through experiences and goodwill and supporting your fellow man, I mean, you've got elements of all of those in your book. All those storylines are there, and I think that's what makes them such an interesting read. I don't know
Well,
if
I
that was
appreciate that.
intentional. I don't know if that was intentional, but that you got there.
Well, it was a goal.
Yeah,
Now, it's a goal. I think you and I both. You write so well and everything. So I know that it was a goal, but are you going to am I going to reach that goal?
yeah.
I sure don't want it to. I mean, so far the feedback's been really good on both of them, so I'm pleased with that.
Yeah, I think you reached the goal. I just encourage more people to pick them up and read them. Especially if you're a hunter, but even if you're a non-hunter, or you're just interested about so many different topics around the outdoor world. It covers so many different topics.
Gunworks just launched a new rifle system. It's called Index. It's sized for adventure and engineered for extremes. With barrel lengths as short as 16 inches and a folding stock that collapses to an ultra-short profile, the Gunworks Index fits nicely in a UTV, a float plane, or across the seat of your truck without sacrificing accuracy. The Index features a built-in ARCA and pick rail for use on tripod or bipod, and a night vision rail to ensure you're ready for any scenario. The Gunworks Index delivers magnum capability in the most compact chassis rifle system on the market. Visit gunworks.com to learn more.
Let's go back to hunting a little bit. I want to talk to you. Now, you hunted croc and hyena in
Yes, I did.
Mozambique.
Yes.
Was that a wish list thing? Was that something?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, the crocodile terrified me, not because of being a crocodile.
It's because they hung a pork chop around your neck and put you out in the water.
Well, I've got a story about that in a minute, about my guide, who's supposedly a good friend of mine. But anyway, yeah, both of those animals have been on my wish list. The hyena has been on my wish list since I read Ruark as a kid. The same way with the leopard, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get a leopard in Namibia a number of years back. But Ruark just wrote about hyenas, and he didn't actually write about it as being a game animal, as more of a nuisance kind of thing. But he wrote so well about it, and he intrigued me about it, and really captured my attention and desire. So the hyena was that. It was a fascinating hunt because we did it at night. We did it with calls, just like you do with coyotes or any kind of predators here in the U.S. So we were using thermal scopes. I'd never done that before, so I was, really worried I was going to do a terrible job with that. And I was fascinated with the darn collar that they had doing. It was giving out it was hyena noises, but the same noises, the same types of calls that you do for coyotes. There was pup in distress. There were, individual hyenas calling, then calling back and forth to one another. I mean, it was just like coyote hunting here. And so, so that was, but I should mention that both the hyena and the croc are in a new area called Massagear that Zambezi Delta Safaris has gone in partnership with a company called Messenger Safaris, and the Messenger Safari or Massagear Safaris is actually a photo safari, but they're hunters too. But they had managed their property just for the photos and for short stay folks who were coming through. So Zambezi Delta Safaris took this over, and it's real close. It's in between, well, sort of in between, but it's close to both Limpopo on the Mozambique side and Kruger on the South African side. So so folks who know that that's down sort of in the southwest portion, I guess, of Mozambique, South Central, whatever. And dry area. So it has kudu, it has wildebeest, stuff that you don't see at Katata 11. Beautiful property, beautiful. So anyway, that's where we hunted. The hyena was actually on that property, and then we hunted the croc on Lake Massagear, which is about 50, now I'm going to forget, either 50 kilometers or 50 miles long, and just absolutely chock-a-block full of crocodiles and lots of hippos. So yeah, hippos are the things that worried me more than the crocodiles did. But so that's where I hunted the crocodile, though.
I'm guessing there's not a lot of recreational swimming in that lake.
Well, the sad part is there's a lot of, just like around any lake in a developing country and in Africa in particular, lots and lots of folks. There are farmers, there are fishermen who rowed us out to our place where we had the blind for 2 days, which was unsuccessful. I actually ended up shooting the darn croc out of a boat, which I don't recommend. And but it was a last chance kind of thing. So the crocodile I got was one that had taken a farmer the week before.
Wow.
Or a couple of weeks before, I guess it was. So yeah, it was a big croc, and he was a beautiful animal to take. He would have been 75 years old or whatever. But he would have eaten people all along. But you see these kids out in the water, the women getting water, the men like this farmer collecting water for their crops. They're constantly in the water. And these big crocs know exactly where people are coming into the water.
The Houston Safari Club Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the future of hunting and conservation. Wildlife and habitat conservation, youth education and outdoor experiences, scholarships, and anti-poaching efforts are just a few of the programs supported by this organization. Monthly events, an annual convention, award-winning publications, networking opportunities, and valuable resources for hunting knowledge are just a few of the benefits of being a member of Houston Safari Club Foundation. If you're searching for a group of people dedicated to protecting the future of hunting, look no further. Join Houston Safari Club Foundation today at wehuntwegive.org or call 713-623-8844.
All right. So how did you know that was that alligator? Had it been earmarked? You guys had a bounty on him, or
the croc? You mean? Yeah. No. What happened was you're going
to tell me a gross story, aren't you?
No, not
Go
really.
ahead.
No, we didn't. No gross stories. Okay. We don't want to give anybody nightmares. But what happened was we went to the lake. Yeah. We baited actually with my hyena carcass and a blue wildebeest head that they had shot on the other property for camp food. And so we baited the first day with that, and the place. It was the most amazing thing. It was unsuccessful for getting the crocodile, but one little crocodile came in, splashed once, and you looked across the lake from our blind. We were up on an elevated knoll, and the whole lake, it would look like Normandy,
Really?
like the boats coming across. And it just that one splash, they heard it from across a mile or two across the lake and immediately beamed in on that crocodile, and the place erupted.
Wow.
It was the most amazing thing. But the problem was, and we had several big ones, according to my guide, Dylan Holmes, and I'm sure he was telling the truth. He said he pointed them out, but they never came in onto the land far enough where we could take a shot because they would have just sunk. And his comment to me was, I'm not going in after a submerged crocodile. I just want to mention that. And I said,
Right.
yeah, I'm not either. And
Right.
neither was Albino, our tracker. Neither one of them was interested in doing that. Second day, we went back to that same spot, baited again. Wind was blowing wrong, kept the blood that you chum with in to the shore, and no crocs came in. And so the third day, which was our last day there, was one of those last day stories in outdoor life.
Last hour, the last ton of the last day.
Well, actually, yeah, it's going to come out in Sports-A-Field, so you'll read about it next year. But so we cruised and we were going to do spot and stalk, and we spotted and stalked. So we would go in, we were in a boat, obviously, and so we spotted a couple of good crocs, beached away from them, tried to stalk in and blew them out. And so we were done. And it was fine. I mean, I'd had a wonderful time. I mean, it would have, without the crocodile, it wasn't going to ruin the trip or anything. It had been a wonderful hunt. So we were going in, and Francis and I were putting all of our gear up into our backpacks because we were headed back to the boat ramp. And Dylan and Albino were chatting, and Dylan said, we're going to check this last cove. It was, I don't know, maybe 500 meters around from where the boat dock was. I said, okay. And we kept working on our stuff, and we pulled into the cove, and Dylan said, yeah, I heard him sharp intake of breath, and he said, that's a big crocodile. And there were actually two on the shore 200 and some odd yards away from us across this cove, and the one on the left looked like a darn dinosaur to me. I mean, it was huge, big. I mean, it was huge across too. And he said, there's no way to spot and stalk that. And I said, you want to try paddling in? I said, I can't imagine we're going to take a shot from a moving boat. But anyway, because I was going to shoot it in the spine. I didn't want to blow the skull out. But the brain's pretty small too, about the size of a lemon. So 200 some odd yards. And so they had cut the engine, and they started paddling with these little plastic paddles that they had. And I kept reading the distance. We set me up on Francis's backpack that had her Kindle in it. As it turned out, I was glad I didn't break it. And, life jackets and all sorts of stuff in the bow of the boat, just with me leaning down across it. And we got to a 101 yards away from this thing, and there was no wind, so it was a real calm day, but the boat was swinging back and forth, and it bumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I think I can make this shot, but we just have to get and they settled the boat, and Dylan turned around to Francis and Albino and told them, do not breathe. And I hit it, and it thrashed, and I shot it behind the shoulder again, or I shot it behind the shoulder then, and we powered in, and they tied it to every tree we could find, but it was dead when we got there. So anyway, it was an amazing hunt. And then we had to hurry to get us back into the boat so he could go get a bunch of other people to get it. And before it was dark, because you do not want to be on the lake with the hippos, especially in the dark. So.
Oh, that's a great story. How big was he? How big?
14 feet.
14
and he was 14 feet long, and he was just as broad as you could imagine. I mean, I'd never actually seen, I've seen him longer.
Yeah.
But this thing, Craig Boddington, I sent him a photo of it and said, Craig, I got a crocodile. And he said, man, that's a fatty, is what he called it. I didn't want to think why it was so darn fat.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
But I will mention one thing about the conservation in that area too, and the hunting, is that they were going to use that crocodile meat. They would have gotten, I estimated, about 650 pounds of meat out of that crocodile. And about 50% of the folks who were there ate crocodile, who we met, and about 50% of them didn't, but they were going to come back and harvest every bit of that meat. So
Yeah.
it didn't go to waste.
Well, you and I both know if you'd have been in South Louisiana, they would have been 100% of those people.
They eat the teeth in
Yeah,
South
exactly.
Louisiana.
Exactly. Some good eating there. Well, Mike, man, I appreciate your time. The stories are awesome. We could talk hunting all day. Where can people find your books?
Well, they can go to www.mikearnoldoutdoors.com, and if they order either or both of those books from there, they'll get a signed copy.
Okay.
But they can also find both books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookstores can get them for you. But like I emphasize, and also I do show up to the shows and sign copies there and that sort of thing, like Dallas and SCI and other shows, EWA and stuff like that. But the bottom line is they're available all over the place. But if they want a signed copy, they need to go to my website and press that button.
Got it. MikeArnoldOutdoors.com, folks. Check it out. Mike, it's been a pleasure as always. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
And we need to hear about all the Scottish Highland stuff when you get back.
They may be taking my carcass off the mountains.
Don't jinx yourself. Take care, Mike. See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hunting Matters is a Houston Safari Club Foundation production. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For questions or more information, email us at info@wehuntwegive.org.